Hi everyone, I just wanted to provide a quick summary of the quantitative appraisal exercise that you did last week. Your groups did really well with this. You identified some key issues with the studies themselves. For example, the idea of issues at baseline. The exercise group, for example, had more pain and for a longer duration than the other group, which could have an effect on the conclusions that the authors brought about. Certainly, several of you mentioned this idea that there was problems potentially with the massage that was provided, whether it was because of training or was being done by someone else, maybe to a different standard, which is of concern for sure. Some of you made note of the fact that the research design might have been a wee bit flawed as well. So again, all good things, and really what I wanted you to do was emulate what you might do in clinical practice, where as a group, in a clinic, for example, you might have a particular question that is brought about, and then there's a good fulsome discussion that happens from that. That could be with other RMTs, it could be with other healthcare providers, and that's really kind of the way to go there. For me, the study as well, there was a couple of things. The follow-up was only 12 weeks, I believe, which was pretty short, and they actually had a significant drop. I think it was 15% in terms of people reporting back after the follow-up. So a lot of times you'd like to see a study with a longer follow-up. As a rule as well, when people are putting these studies together, usually what they do is they're able to calculate the number of people involved in the study, and then they add to it. So they'll top it off a little because they expect there's going to be a little bit of people dropping out of studies. And usually the rule of thumb is 10% for that. For this study, it was 15%. So again, does that have an overall effect on the conclusions being made? Possibly. I think the important thing is having these conversations and these discussions. Some key concepts that I'd like to kind of impart. Firstly, in this sort of exercise, if you're to go through this in your practice, really what you want to know is whether the information is informing your practice in any way, shape, or form. So that's the first question. Is this changing your thinking about things? If it changes it for, you're changing your practice based on this study, that's not necessarily a good or bad thing. It's something you want to reflect on. In much the same way, if you are saying, no, it's not for me, it doesn't make sense, that's okay. But I encourage you to kind of reflect and critically kind of look at why that might be the case. Is it because the study itself is flawed, or is it perhaps because you are kind of quite happy with the way you're doing things right now, which might be okay. But again, there's always that risk that we might be kind of getting into a very comfortable kind of settled position in our clinical practice. For me as well, this study, regardless of the conclusions, I think the big take home for me was it showed that there is value in exercise therapy. And that's something I can share with my clients as well, in terms of if they're coming in with shoulder issues. And the last kind of key point I think I'd like to kind of share is really, after kind of doing an exercise like this, do you have any follow-up questions? Are you happy with the result? Are you happy with the exercise? Are you left wanting more? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So all that to say is kind of keep open minded about things and critical, and you're not going to agree with everything that comes your way, nor should you. That leaves us for next week, or this week rather, which is qualitative appraisal. A little bit more in the way of choice this week. So you have the choice of studies to do, and of course who makes up your group, but it's the same sort of process. And for me, I like qualitative studies specifically because they add a richness to research. We get to hear the clients' voices. We get to hear their experiences and what works well and what works doesn't, in a way that sometimes quantitative studies can't. So that's it for now. If you have any questions, please give me a shout. Otherwise, I will see you online.